Gladiators, the celebrated warriors of ancient Rome, lived in a world painted with brutal strokes of courage, fear, honor, and most unforgivably, death. Their legacy is etched deep within the archives of history, presenting a curious, cruel, and captivating facet of ancient Roman society. Yet, the gladiators' world was much more complex and paradoxical than often portrayed. Beyond the lust for blood and spectacle, their lives encapsulated a peculiar blend of brutality and grandeur, reverence and disdain, freedom and servitude. But who were these gladiators? Were they heroes, victims, or both? What prompted a society to celebrate such violent and bloody contests? Join us as we travel into this complex world, uncovering the harsh realities of the gladiators' existence, their celebrated status in Roman society, and the deeply ingrained ethos that justified these bloody spectacles. Since unraveling the origins of Roman gladiators provides a crucial lens to comprehend their significance and evolution over centuries, let's step back in time to a period before Rome became an empire and gladiatorial games, or munera as they were known, were not yet the colossal spectacles we imagine today. The gladiators, warriors of the arena, were not initially born of grandeur and spectacle. In 264 BC, the first recorded munera took place, deeply rooted in the Etruscan tradition of honoring the dead with a blood sacrifice. In the early stages, these events were private funeral rituals rather than public entertainment, serving as an offering to the spirits of the departed. Initially, gladiators were largely slaves, prisoners of war, or condemned criminals. Individuals seen as expendable, they were chosen to entertain and placate the masses, the living embodiment of the paradox of Rome, a civilization marked by both remarkable refinement and savage cruelty. However, as the years passed and the allure of the gladiatorial life grew, it wasn't just the downtrodden who took up the sword. Many free men, driven by the thrill of battle, the promise of glory, and the lure of wealth, willingly chose this brutal path. They came from various backgrounds and fought in an array of styles. There were the retiarii, armed with tridents and nets, the myrmilones, bearing large shields and swords, and the Thracians, with their unique curved daggers. This diverse roster of combatants and the varied styles of gladiatorial fights reflect the transition of these games from intimate funeral rites to grand public spectacles. Stepping into the heart of a gladiator's journey, we enter a realm where survival is determined not solely by physical prowess, but also by rigorous training, discipline, and a deeply ingrained knowledge of weaponry and strategy. The harsh reality of a gladiator's life began with recruitment, a process open to both those compelled into the arena, slaves, prisoners of war, and criminals, and those who, against all odds, chose this life voluntarily. The latter group, known as auctorati, often joined for the potential glory and financial rewards the arena could offer. Once recruited, the gladiators were handed over to a lanista, a gladiator trainer whose role was critical in the formation of these warriors. The lanista was not merely a trainer but also a manager, responsible for selling their services to the highest bidder. They ran their training schools, called ludi, where gladiators were housed, trained, and often lived until they either died in combat or earned their freedom. Here, in these stark, rigorous schools, the transformation from raw recruit to disciplined gladiator occurred. Men were categorized into different classes, each with its own unique fighting style, weaponry, and armor. The myrmilones, for instance, typically fought with a large oblong shield and a short sword, or gladius. They were often pitted against the Thracians, who were armed with a curved dagger and a small round shield. The retiarii, on the other hand, had a unique approach, using a trident and a net to ensnare their opponents. These types of gladiators, and others like them, were drilled in their specific fighting styles, with every day dedicated to perfecting their skills, increasing their stamina, and learning strategies to exploit their opponents' weaknesses. This meticulous, relentless training was as vital to their survival as the courage they showed in the arena. Gladiators' daily routines were as regulated and demanding as their training. The day of a gladiator began at dawn, a fitting start for those whose lives echoed the harsh realities of the Roman arenas. This early start was marked by strenuous exercise regimes, designed not just to build muscle strength, but also to enhance their stamina, flexibility, and speed. Such an exhaustive physical routine was critical for their survival, a part of their day as non-negotiable as the setting of the sun. Just as their bodies were finely tuned instruments of war, so too was their diet, engineered to maintain their robust physique and quick recovery. Contrary to what one might expect, gladiators followed a predominantly vegetarian diet. They consumed high amounts of carbohydrates, barley, beans, oatmeal, and dried fruits, aiming to build body mass and energy reserves. To supplement this, they drank a concoction known as Gladiatoriam sanguinem, a mix of plant ash and vinegar. Rich in calcium, it was believed to fortify their bones and expedite the healing of wounds. This intriguing dietary routine underscores the fact that every aspect of a gladiator's life was calibrated to serve their ultimate purpose, to fight and survive in the deadly games. The gladiatorial life was riddled with injuries, and hence a rudimentary form of healthcare existed. Doctors, known as medici, were present at the arenas. They had a strong understanding of anatomy, primarily to ensure wounded gladiators would fight again. Contrary to popular belief, not all fights end in death. In fact, records suggest that only 1 in 9 fights led to fatalities. For many gladiators, retirement was a distant dream, but not an impossible one. If they survived long enough and pleased enough crowds, gladiators could earn a rudis, a symbolic wooden sword signifying their freedom. It is estimated that the average gladiator could hope for freedom after about 5 years, or roughly 15 fights. The Gladiator Games, the enormous spectacle that defined these soldiers' existence, are the next step after understanding their daily lives. These bloody, lavishly staged games were the result of the gladiators' extensive training in both physical and mental preparation. A typical gladiator event was an all-day affair, beginning with animal hunts in the morning, followed by executions of criminals, and culminating in the gladiator fights in the afternoon. But the grandest stage for these games was undoubtedly the Colosseum, the iconic symbol of Rome's power and architectural genius. With a capacity of over 50,000 spectators, the Colosseum embodied the grandeur and brutality of these events. The role of the emperor and the crowd was paramount in the games. Emperors often sponsored games to curry favor with the populace, a political move to demonstrate their wealth and power. As for the crowd, they played judge, choosing life or death for a defeated gladiator with a simple thumbs up or thumbs down. The gladiatorial combat itself was wrapped in rituals. It began with a parade of the combatants, followed by a symbolic submission to the emperor and the crowd. Then the brutal yet compelling fight commenced, a deadly dance between 2 trained warriors. While the battles were violent, they were not aimless brawls. Each move was calculated. Each strike was a blend of practiced skill and desperate survival. It is also noteworthy that the Gladiator Games have a far-reaching network of social, political, and cultural implications that intertwine with the very fabric of ancient Roman society. In many ways, the games mirrored Roman society itself. The hierarchical structure of the arena, with the emperor at the top and the senators, knights, and common citizens, mirrored the stratified social order of Rome. The gladiators, like many citizens, were caught in this web of power dynamics. Their fights represented the Roman virtues of bravery, endurance, and the ability to face death with dignity. Politically, the games were a potent tool in the hands of the ruling class. Emperors and politicians sponsored games to win public approval and demonstrate their magnificence. In a society without a vote, these spectacles were a means to gauge and manipulate public sentiment. During the reign of Emperor Augustus, there were approximately 8,000 gladiator deaths, a testament to the scale of these events. However, the games were not without ethical considerations and critique. Many philosophers, like Seneca, voiced their disgust at the gratuitous violence. Despite this, the games remained largely unquestioned until the rise of Christianity in the late 4th century, which brought a shift in moral and ethical values, eventually leading to the banning of gladiator fights in 404 AD. Thus, the Gladiator Games were not just entertainment, they were a societal mirror, reflecting and reinforcing the values, ideals, and power dynamics of ancient Rome. A tapestry of the social mores, societal mores, cultural standards, and political tactics of ancient Rome is revealed as we navigate the horrific gladiator world. compelling us to wonder how the idea of entertainment and human value has changed since that time, and what may be learned from these remnants of the past. We appreciate you coming along with us on this adventure today. We'll be back soon.